Hey everyone, welcome to Payments After Dark. My name's Mike with Twill, and today I have Saint on the podcast of Universal Processing. Welcome, Saint. Excited to talk to you today.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
No problem. I think you've got a very interesting story, so I want to start at the beginning. Tell me, in the most generic question in any payments podcast, how'd you get into it? I know you had this conflict with your parents about what you wanted to do and you kind of went
Mhm.
the other way. So let's dive into that.
Okay. If you want to start from there,
Yeah.
Lord. Conflict with parents, traditional Asian immigrant story. I'd be getting 93s on tests in high school, and they'd be like, "Why is it not 100?" And they're like, "Why do you want to study business and business administration and finance?" And I was like, "Because that's what I'm interested in." They're like, "No, go be a doctor, or maybe an engineer or something. Go do one of those things, or your fallback can be lawyer." And I'm like, I don't want to be a doctor, lawyer, or an engineer. I want to be a money guy. And yeah, so that was the initial conflict. And I had taken an internship to Morgan Stanley Dean Witter was called at the time,
Mhm.
in my junior year of high school. And I loved it. And I would have kept going on that track if not for a little one of life's first bumps. I had at the time they had these Dun and Bradstreet and Hoover leads, which were in cards. This is before Salesforce and the CRM age, but we just had D&B leads that came by the stack, and I was responsible for my building's Dun and Bradstreet leads. I was responsible for taking them back, organizing them by market size and employee size, and here are the A leads, the Glengarry leads, and here's the
Yeah.
B, and here's what we give to the entry level people. So I was actually at a Magic the Gathering tournament playing cards, and I got robbed of those leads. And my financial advisor, who moved from Morgan Stanley to Merrill Lynch when Merrill was around at the time in the 90s, he was like, you're like super fired. You're not just super fired, you're like super duper fired. Every single professional making over $500,000 in investment banking will know how much of an incompetent, blah, 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 blah you are. You're never, ever, ever going to make it in investment banking. You little fill in the blanks. And I was, imagine being 16 years old, high school internship, and hearing about this. I was floored, and I never went into investment banking. Fortunately, I took an installation position at, a Wall Street ISO, a universal savings bank, now known as Fifth Third, but are merged with Fifth Third,
Mhm.
USB ISO, and I learned payments literally from the ground up, installing credit card terminals in dingy places, in bodegas, in hair threading salons, in general stationery stores and smoke shops, and that's how I began.
One door closed, smashed in the
Yes,
face.
yeah.
I can't imagine that as a 16-year-old. I would have like crumpled on the floor at that age.
Imagine, no, not just that. I have to say, with my, I know this is not a collectibles podcast or anything, but I was 16 years old. I had taken all of probably late junior high school to high school to collect a batch of Magic the Gathering cards, trading cards, that
Mhm.
even back then, that was worth probably 50,000 USD in 1996.
Wow.
Those cards translating over today, because of the COVID boom and collectibles, probably would be $8 to $10 million of cards. But I
Oh,
I got those plus the Dun and Bradstreet leads of Merrill Lynch all robbed at the same time, and it was like a, I don't know if it, I mean, it was more than a double whammy. It was like a quintuple whammy. It was getting
yes.
smitten by life.
There's nothing left after that. Oh my
As a
I'm
teenager,
glad
I
we
was
can
like,
laugh
what am I
about that
gonna
now.
do?
Yes. Okay, but I have to ask, was
Yeah.
was the target of the robbery the Magic the Gathering cards or
It
the
was. It was.
okay,
I
but
was
they
at a
just
Magic tournament, but the
okay.
collateral damage was I pissed off an entire floor at Merrill Lynch because this was the lead financial advisor, like the big dog of the floor. We were in Sixth Avenue in the 40s, one of those big fancy buildings, and this was
Hmm.
a top dog that I'd busted my butt, to intern for, and
Yeah.
I was his I was his main coffee and sandwich guy, which was,
Yeah.
in the culture of investment banking in the 90s, that was a great place to be in your teens, you know?
You were on your way up.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Oh man. But
But
that turn brought you here. And I want to ask you, because there's something you said last time we talked. You called yourself an immigrant from Queens with a big dream. And so what did that mean back then when you started to pay in payments? A did you have a dream of building what you built back then? Or were you just in it?
no, I mean, it's so hard to say. I mean, right after hitting at the time, that was rock bottom for me at 16 years old.
Hmm.
Having trouble in school and getting out and internship, kind of pivoting to my first real job before college is even underway.
Hmm.
I just wanted to get by, just wanted to have an income, maybe go out for, an underage beer on the weekends. Hey, it's New York City in the 90s. Just don't judge. That's what we did in our teenage years, right?
Of course.
And that was it. The target was not high. And the target's never been high. It was survive, 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 be comfortable, be able to pay rent, be able to have a 6 month cushion. Somewhere along the way, I was like, oh, if I, again, this is a 16-year-old kid saying, oh, if one day I can make $1 million, wow, that would be something. And
Hmm.
then maybe somewhere in my 20s, 10, and then numbers stopped being important after I reached a certain level of maturity because, you evolve, you mature, and your goal changes.
Right. Let's talk about that because
Mhm.
today, wait, if I remember this correctly, 23 years ago this was? I mean, how long have you been building?
The company itself,
Yeah.
formerly Universal Processing, founded in early 2023. So this is our
Okay.
24th year. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So that journey from I just want to make some money in payments to live my
Mhm.
life
Mhm.
to now very successful. What happened there? Like, what were the steps? What made you think, all right, I'm gonna go build something on my own and I'm
Mhm.
gonna do something different and I'm gonna, what take me through that.
Well, it was just living basically paycheck to paycheck, hand to mouth. Minimum wage was something like $6.25 an hour, going merchant to merchant. I was like, I'm an installer right now. This is literally the worst. This is not even a
Yeah.
desk job. This is, you know, taking a little dolly and loading it up with Nurit and Hypercom terminals, in the 90s when they were the craze, and going subway station to subway station, door to door in some really seedy neighborhoods,
Mhm.
installing, implementing the the debit programs, the Y2K, technology programs, whatever pitches were all the craze back then, and then saying, "Ah, I'd love to be a telemarketer one day, maybe sell something." And the telesales people, and when I became a telesalesperson, wow, I'd love to be a salesperson one day. I'd love to be a sales manager one day. And then as a sales manager for a couple of local Wall Street, financial district shops, I looked to the top target, which was wow, I'd love to be part of Chase Payment Tech one day. Chase Merchant Services, I think it was called in the time I was there, 2003. And
Mhm.
then being at Chase Merchant Services, I was like, this is the top. Literally going into Chase Merchant Services in my interview, um, the VP that had hired me said, Saint, at your age, if you just stick with this job, the corporate BS will get to you and whatnot, but if you don't let it get to you and you hang in there for 20 years or more, you'll have more money than God. That's the first time I heard. I mean, this is year 2000 by then. You'll have more money than God if you just stay as a salesperson. I was like, wow, does that
Yeah.
mean one day I can buy bottle service? This is me as a 20-year-old kid, like
Uh-huh.
seeing people who are 23 and 25 go to Webster Hall or whatever the hottest nightclubs were. That was success to me. And then that probably was short-lived. It was a 3, 4 year period at Chase, and I was like, you know what? He's right. I shouldn't let it get to me. And right now, in my early 20s, pulling in an entry-level six-figure income, I should be happy, but I'm not. I'm not. And what preceded was probably, I'd say in the short term, in the first 10 to 15 years, it was one of the dumbest financial decisions of my life because
Really?
I'd quit a very stable position, an enviable position. You know, I got hired earlier than any member of Chase Payment Tech in history. I was not even 21 years old, and
Oh,
I had
wow.
already been in the unique position to have accumulated 4 years of payment experience. And they told me that, and they're like, "You can you can be management, you can do anything. Just keep selling strong." And I was like, I I don't want to be. I don't like how this makes me feel. I don't like, nothing, no knock on Chase. This is all companies, every single holding in the BlackRock and Vanguard portfolio. They probably treat their employees like this. It's just go out, make our shareholders money, and be happy that you have a job. And if we make cuts, well, guess what? Read part 1A, which is be happy you have a job here, right? Be happy you're with such a prominent brand. And on the
Mhm.
customer side, it was always, hey, we promise you this, we promise you that. Look, we have a branch on every single corner. We really care about you. We care about the community. And the actual execution and actual implementation wasn't like that a quarter century ago. And a quarter century later, I was in a very prominent procurement conference in DC. I met
Mhm.
with four of the top 10 banks just to chit chat, little meet and greet with their procurement departments. And they're like, Saint, what you're doing in 2025 at the time, what you're doing in 2025 is so novel. You know, most publicly traded banks, are lucky to service their customers in 1.5 languages. And the half I'm talking about, para español, marque un número dos, right?
Right,
That's
right.
that's really it. They serve in 1.5 languages, and we
Hmm.
prefer English is their strong messaging and their strong direction. And I don't think that signals very much care or consideration with the melting pot that we have in the U.S. and the melting pot of especially immigrant business owners.
And that seems to be the thread that carried through. So your time at Chase,
Yep.
correct me if I'm wrong here, but they made you realize that maybe it's a slight priority shift here. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
maybe it's not all about money because that's what Chase or a big corporation cares about,
Yeah.
but I want to be part of this community and help them as part of my business. Was that the big kind of shift that brought you out of there and into the
Absolutely. Absolutely. Just the whole, going home at the end of the sales month or at the end of every night, in the beginning, it's like, look, your market is here. It's the Diamond District. It's Chinatown. It's, the financial district. I had a couple of markets, but a lot of it was very immigrant centered, right?
Mhm.
And I signed a merchant. I told them how amazing it would be, this great corporation would be and how much coverage they'd have. And there's like, even in the year 2000, they were complaining. They were like, Saint, we can reach you, but you don't have the answers. You know what price you sold it to me at, and you know what your bonus is going to be. But when it actually comes to helping me with what is this error code or what is that error code, it's like nobody taught me that. The company didn't teach me that. The company taught them to look on their merchant processing agreement, call a 1-800 number, and they'd be lucky to talk to any human being. Forget about in-language support. And I was like, I'm not. I didn't go out looking for that David versus Goliath battle.
Mhm.
Not initially, but I said something can be done better here. I think there's a strong need for in language, in person, you know, cultural understanding, that bond between people of like cultures. And if we can do that, then we can connect multiple communities of small business owners. And that's what we did.
It's an amazing vision. And tell me, what did that look like in practice when you're structuring your company? I
Hmm.
mean, you start small. I feel like if you have a few agents, it's you and a few people, it's
Yep.
very easy to keep that vision, right?
Mhm.
Because everyone's on board. But as you grew, I mean, how did that evolve in the way you built your company so that you made sure that, hey, we're hanging on to this tight. This is what we mean.
It was ugly. I'll say our history in the first decade, like 2003 to 2012, it was truly ugly. It was a decade of learning how to operate a business under nonstop losses. It was a decade of living under the burden of credit card debt. And it was a decade of just being kind of stubborn because, I'm obviously of an Asian background. And because of my Asian background, because of my desire to get away from the mom and pop Asian business owners, because my mother and father were Asian business owners, I pursued the Caribbean, the black market, as well as the Latino market as as me. And yes, some of them would talk to me. A lot of them thought I was too young and not trustworthy, not established to be trusted. But I built my teams of, Caribbean and Latino agents, and we targeted that market. But I learned throughout that decade that it would probably be unsustainable if I had went feet on the street to just do that and just target that market just because not to get controversial and not to get racial at all, but certain ethnic groups, the small businesses have lower volumes than other ethnic groups. I
Mm.
just happened to, at the turn of the decade, or close to year 8 to year 10 of operating this business, I finally said, or one of my colleagues who was Chinese, he said, Saint, you've intentionally veered away from the one culture that could make it the easiest for you, which is the Chinese business community. I don't know why you're doing that. You're shooting yourself in the foot. You can choose to live life on hard mode and lose money forever by targeting a market that doesn't trust you and you don't really understand their culture, right? Or we can do a marketing program. We could do a mailer program. We could do a flyer program. We did all the above, newspaper and everything. And then we advertised in Chinese newspapers. We advertised in restaurant trade magazines. We had mailings out there. And I just stopped being stubborn because a colleague just slapped me around. He's like, look at your business. I've been your friend for this whole decade, and now I'm joining your business to help you out. You've gone from 1 to 5 people to maybe 1 to 10 people and up and down and up and down and up and down. And you've been felted multiple times just ignoring that prominent ethnic group that you share a culture with. You're being stubborn and you're intentionally living and running your business on hard mode. So you know, I gave in, I listened to him, and within probably 6 months, we had the most sizable spike in business that we'd ever experienced. And that this was literally 8 full years of saying, no, I don't want to go down the mom and pop Chinese business route. It's a dead end. I know what I'm doing. I can help these impoverished communities of, Latinos and Caribbeans in the five boroughs. I think that's the way. And this guy's like, no, here, look, there's something called Google. Google is telling me that Asian immigrant businesses have the highest volumes. They are the most successful businesses. You're intentionally leaving out and then they're the most small business owners from a proportion perspective. I think Asian immigrants, 1 in 9 Asian immigrants runs a small business.
Wow.
So it was like I finally said, okay, let's give it a shot. And immediately everything pivoted. We jumped from, 3 to 5 employees to 20, 25, 30, 35 employees
Wow. Just
within
that small
a couple
change.
of years. Well, it's a big thing. It's a big thing because I was suppressing the
Yeah.
the easiest path of, the saying, what was it? The Navy saying, kiss, keep it simple, stupid, right?
Yeah.
I
Right.
should have kept it simple. I shouldn't have been like, you know what? I don't understand what these guys' struggle is, and I don't understand the culture, but I'm gonna go in there and I'm gonna change how the South American, small business community does business.
Right.
And that was obviously running a business the wrong way. And yeah, in revisiting that, I probably could have saved half a dozen years.
Yeah. I won't call you stubborn, Saint, but there seems like there's some stubbornness there. But I think it's an important lesson. I mean, we all have some of that, right? I experienced it in building my company in the last few years. There's always
Mhm.
this part of your past that you're like, I don't have to touch this because I'm going to do it on my own. And
Mhm.
then it always comes back around. And if you actually embrace that, it's what moves you forward. And I think it's a good lesson. It's not just, I don't want to embrace this community or that community, but it's, my last job or this network that I have.
Mhm.
Um, and I love that. And so you started doing a lot of business in this space, but
Mhm.
then I think, another transition was made as well at some point where from our last talk, you got really involved in these communities. Not only are you, okay, I'm selling to them, but now I'm really embracing these kind of holistically. Uh,
Multiple communities. T
yeah.
Today, I mean, today we service much more than just the Asian community. There's the Muslim Arabic community, all the smoke shops and gas stations, South American community. We have management that are South American, leading sales teams that are South American, and they're all over the place, in the Northeast, in the Midwest, in the West Coast, and they're selling to the communities because we finally achieved that scale and we finally achieved the revenue and profitability necessary. The Southeast Asian, Indian, Pakistani, Bangladeshi communities as well. We've got multiple seasoned salespeople, and yeah, we're just all over the place. Vietnamese, Thai, Korean, just a little bit of everything. And I have to say that it's because we focused in on the easiest pocket of business for myself and the people that were looking for opportunities. There's a lot of Asian people also, like I was in my teens, they were looking for finance jobs. But yeah, it's a very competitive market, apparently.
Yeah, it is. And I think, with companies like Stripe and Square that are automating everything, making it very impersonal, that it's refreshing to see the success of a model like that where you're
Yeah.
embracing a community. Um, I mean, how would you address that? Saying, hey, we have the very opposite over here that like a Stripe that scaled incredibly but is so impersonal.
Hmm.
But now we're really embracing these communities and we're also very successful. Where do agents and ISOs land on that spectrum, right? You've taken this every new agent I feel like hears or someone who's starting an ISO, embrace your network. Just go to the first 100 people you know. But no one ever says that that's a scalable business plan,
Okay.
right? They're just
Yep.
like, this is how you start. And then you build a piece of technology and then you fly off the shelves, right? Um, so I mean, I know you guys are embracing technology too. You're building your own
Yeah.
POS system, or you have, and then you're coming out with the next version of it.
Mhm.
Do you build differently because of the philosophy of your business or the ethos of your business?
Well, we tried to take a page out of the mainstream fintech community maybe a decade ago, which was to source partnerships, POS partnerships and ISVs. Um, and we thought it would work. It always starts out really well.
Hmm.
They refer us a couple of businesses. We refer them double digit and eventually triple digit amount of merchants. And there's a saying from I don't know how to say it in Mandarin, but at least within the Chinese community, it's that um, nobody can really screw you over like your own people. And this is Chinese people. Like nobody there's no feeling like getting screwed by people of your own culture. And the ISV partnerships that I hear that are legendary partnerships that could go on for decades and decades. We never had one. Five, six, seven, 8 times we would give these people a bunch of business. We'd cross sell for these ISVs and these point of sale systems and this software and these loyalty programs. And then every single time, and these were ethnic, Asian immigrant owned partner, businesses, every single time they'd look around, they're like, our acquisition costs are a little crippling. And these universal processing guys, they're making money. What if what if we turned around and signed an ISO agreement with the First Data or WorldPay or TSYS,
Hmm.
and then we told the merchants that, they gave us, could be 300, 500. It was one time up to 1,000 merchants. Well, you're using our software. We're no longer partnered with Universal Processing, and, well, their processing sucks anyway, so you got to come to us on whatever, TSYS or Global or whoever. And this happened in the mid 2000 teens. This happened at least half a dozen times, and we got burnt. And I was like, I can't just keep bumping my head against the wall. I need to develop my own software. So we literally bought a small ISO that had their proprietary point of sale software. We relabeled it. We called it UServe, and one thing led to another. We rebuilt that software twice, and nowadays we have our own research and development team abroad in Taipei, Taiwan, with it's going to be reaching about 2 dozen full-time employees, mostly engineers, this summer. So
Wow.
it's been going on for about 2 years now, and but that's probably 2000 an evolution of 2016 to 2018 of getting screwed, and in
Yeah.
2018 owning our own intellectual property and then
Hmm.
building upon it. And I mean, right now, this afternoon, we're dealing with the beta release of mobile POS, AI agent tools for small immigrant businesses that
Awesome.
can offer omnilingual cross-language support,
Oh yeah.
bunch of crazy and amazing things. But I don't know. I didn't take this podcast to complain, and I don't want it to sound like a complaint, but
Yeah.
it just how many times as an entrepreneur does one need to get screwed in
Hmm.
order to learn from the screwing and evolve? I don't know. I'll just say I think I have a disproportionately had a disproportionately bad shake at things. And when I gather around, at any ETA or Money 2020, and I sit down and have a beer with my fellow payment CEO, they're like, "Yeah, you've got a you've had a really rough go at it, but hey, we're still sitting at the same table, and
You're good now.
you're good
I
now."
mean, it may not make you feel any better, but I hear that all the time
Oh yeah,
from ISOs all over the place.
okay,
Yeah. We partnered with this POS system that said they were agnostic, and we
yeah,
placed 100, 300, 500,000 merchants with them.
hmm
Capital Group bought them. All of a sudden, they switched all of our merchants. We lost our entire portfolio.
yep.
I see it all the time.
Oh, but you've only seen it. I mean, they have that story once. I had
Right.
that story 6 to 8 times, and it's like maybe this time it'll be different. Again, maybe there's a common thread of me having been stubborn in the first 2 decades of entrepreneurship.
Yeah, but it brought you to the right place. Now you have a POS system that aligns really well. And I think, for another podcast, but that's a really interesting and great use to bring in AI is it's very good at translating and allow people to communicate in
Yeah,
different languages. It only makes sense to bring that into a POS platform so that people can get support in the language that they understand best and, you know,
absolutely.
make it comfortable for them.
Hmm.
And I know you told me when we were talking before, tell me why it was important for you to build this development hub in Taiwan, of all places, right? You could have gone to India, you could have gone to South America, Colombia, right? Like,
Yeah. I mean, obviously we could have gone to the obvious one would have been China,
hmm
but I don't have any positive ties to China. Legally speaking, geopolitically speaking, it's not a great idea, although
hmm
some US payments companies do have their software developed in China. I'd say given the current climate of things and the current administration, that would have been the worst choice.
hmm
So we went with a more US friendly, democratic nation, province, region under struggle of Taiwan because that was my ancestral homeland. And you know, it's there's always been this just the principle, the idea of giving back in our family and generally in the Taiwanese culture. And my father was like, at some point, no matter how successful you are in the US, you need to give back. And I gave back to the US first through multiple, post-COVID campaigns, which we can talk about later. But I also decided that the research and development facility, we had options of Romania, Costa Rica, the Philippines.
hmm
And I said, you know what? No, no, no. This feels like a Taiwan project. And it wasn't the most economic, but I would say pound for pound, it has been the most efficient because these professionals from Taiwan, they're, I'm not going to say starstruck, but they're just, they're infatuated with that idea of enabling a minority servicing platform in the US. They're
hmm
like, oh, guess what? You know, he's a Taiwanese CEO, and we're here, giving him the tools and the armor and the equipment to battle it out with the big guys in the global stage.
hmm
And I mean, I don't think that perspective is off at all,
hmm
and this is it's what we're doing. We're out there, we've got like a little BB gun to toast rocket launchers and lasers, and we're finding a way to gain our market share. And that truly is, whether we liked it or not, that truly is the David and Goliath battle.
hmm
And these guys are working for the underdogs, and they like it because they're like, this company really has a purpose, and I feel like I belong to this story. I belong to this journey, this vision, and that's why Taiwan, and that's why Taiwan's been successful, and that's why we've got a lot of very, very talented developers in Taipei. We've literally poached individuals from Taiwan Semiconductor. We've poached individuals from Google, Netflix, Nvidia. We have people literally proactively coming to our doors from NTU, National Taiwan University.
Wow.
Probably to the Western audience, NTU isn't a big deal, but it's like it's the Harvard of Taiwan for sure, and it's on the same. It's within that same echelon of esteemed Asia Pacific universities like Peking University or Tsinghua. NTU is a big deal, and we've got NTU graduates. Like imagine if you're a U.S. Northeast-based payments company and people from Harvard, were lined up trying
Yeah.
to join your company. We've kind of have that phenomenon right now, and they're all egos aside. They're just, working overtime to try to give us the tools that we need. And yeah, I don't want to harp on how proud I am of our Taiwan team. they're amazing. They're amazing.
Well, but you should be, and it's it's crazy this common theme, this string, right? And I don't want to be too cheeseball about it, but it's just hitting me in the head right now.
Mhm.
Is, the embracing of this community helps you fight that David and Goliath battle against Toast. And
Mhm.
then on the development side, it's doing the same thing in Taiwan, right?
Yeah.
It's like this gravity that are pulling other good people into your company. And I
Yeah.
think it's a good segue into, why is that? We've said, okay, Saint really cares about this community, but let's talk about when COVID hit, right? I mean, this is an amazing story, and I love it, and I love what happens afterwards. So with COVID hits, the the whole processing world is shaken. Small businesses are shutting down.
Mhm.
Um, you're in the middle of it because this is most of
Ground
your
zero.
portfolio when you're in New
Yeah.
York.
Yep.
Uh, what happened? What did you do?
So Midtown, New York City, March, I think it was something like March 12th, that Friday. Bill de Blasio, I believe was the mayor at the time. He said, "Hey, everybody go home. We're shutting down for an indefinite period of time because the family in Westchester, they contracted COVID and it's going around and it's everywhere. And, the media was overblowing everything and saying that, for a moment, I don't know if you remember that first quarter of 2020. For a moment, I'd watch the news every single day, and it was almost like they were saying, the world's going to stop turning and the sun is literally not going to come out anymore. I hope
Yes.
I'm not over exaggerating, but that was the
No,
feeling
that
that the
was.
media was portraying. And I'm just like, I felt crappy that weekend. I was like, is humanity over? I literally like I asked myself this and I was like, no, it can't be. I like my rational mind, no way, it can't be. Physics and the Big Bang Theory in 10 billion years has dictated that Monday morning the sun will come out,
Yeah.
the air will be fine and life is gonna go on.
Hmm.
And there was that whole everybody shut down and only essential businesses can go to work. And I said, wait a minute. So delis are essential businesses, pharmacies are essential businesses, dentists and doctors are essential businesses, convenience stores are gas stations are essential. I'm servicing thousands of essential businesses. You know, literally, and at the time we had 130 employees, quarter one of 2020. Not
Hmm.
employees, we were more on a half 1099, whatever. Hope the DOL doesn't come down on me for this, but too late, statute of limitations.
Yes.
But I had agents and 1099s and employees and customer service, but our headcount was 130. And literally in March and April of 2020, I could not convince one single human being to show up with me at our headquarters.
Wow.
They came up with so many excuses. They're like, "Oh, my family needs to be with me, so I'm going back to Asia."
Oh, wow.
They quit their jobs because they didn't think there'd be a tomorrow. They went with their friends or their boyfriends and girlfriends because they wanted to live out the rest of their lives, given the crazy world and work wasn't important anymore.
This was very existential for your
Yeah,
employees.
it was crazy. It was crazy. And
Yeah.
they all turned tail, but not only the employees. I felt, and I'm not trying to tell on anybody, so I won't give any names. By then I had known probably, you know, 60 to 80 other CEOs and payments. And, I was hearing, oh, well, I've got a cabin in Big Sky and, I've got something in the Poconos, my Malibu house. Oh, we're going to go on our yacht. I'm going to go to Switzerland. I've got a place south of France. And I'm just like, I didn't hear anybody say, I'm going to stay and fight for my business. I'm going to stay and fight for my community. But I was like, New York is my home, and I don't have a second home. I don't have a vacation house, you know? I don't have a yacht. I'm just gonna stay at home and I'm gonna
Yeah.
fight this fight. And even if 129 other people in who worked for our company, you know, went the other way, some of them were undecided, I literally just went to work probably by Wednesday. Like Monday to, we were out Friday. I took the weekend off and stressed the heck out. Monday and Tuesday, I tried to work from home and answer emails. Wednesday, I said, screw it. I don't care. They can arrest me. I'm opening up the shop and I'm going to sit there every single business day. I'm going to answer customer service phone calls if I have to. There weren't many. And I'm going to just do work. And it was probably until April 15th, mid-April,
Hmm.
that the office started, people started showing up to the office with masks.
Hmm.
And from that April to June period, we recovered our headcount to something like 33 nationwide, 33. We,
Nationwide.
we had 14 equity holding partners. And I was like, guys, I
Wow.
don't I don't know what you guys think, but we're the captains of the ship.
Hmm.
And if we're gonna sink, guess what? Historically speaking, captains, they sink with
Yeah.
their ship. They're the last
Yeah.
ones that get off. So you
Uh-huh.
guys hold equity. If unless we need to have a certain conversation about that changing,
Hmm.
get your asses back into your offices. I'm sorry. I treat partners truly like family, and then the expectations of Asian family is there's no such thing as overtime, there's no complaining, show
Yeah.
up and do your job. To,
Right.
and I'm not that way with, team members and employees, but with partners, sorry, if it goes for me, whatever goes for me goes for you guys. And we had the 14 or so partners. And the reason why it was 30, roughly 33, was it's 14 partners and literally 19 early employees. We called them our COVID-19, funny enough, because
That's hilarious.
19
Wow.
non-equity holding employees showed
19.
up to work quarter two. Only 19 out of, 100 non-partner employees,
Wow.
120 people,
Yeah.
19 showed up. And we literally had to rebuild a 130, member organization down to 30s, 30, 33.
Wow.
And that was quarter two, but also in quarter two, there wasn't much selling going on.
Hmm.
There wasn't much of anything going on. There was our residual portfolios tanking 85 to 90%. We were literally making 10 to 15% of the revenue that we were used to making because the world had shut down. Maybe
Hmm.
there's some online businesses, some of those groceries, the delis, the pharmacies, the clinics, they had reopened up and nobody was wanting to listen to, hey, let me get a copy of your merchant statement. I'll save you a few basis points. They're
Yeah.
like, you know,
Help me
you
survive.
know, what the
Right.
heck is wrong with you?
Yeah.
Are you looking outside? Why are you calling me? And then that resonated because in April, I kept hearing, why are you calling me? And I was like, you know what? We can turn this around. We can pivot. And what we did was we proactively called businesses, first the businesses within our UP network, to ask them if everything was okay, just like a wellness check.
Hmm.
And we also trained our 33 members to, as to what new programs, social programs are coming out with state loans and the PPP and the EIDL and the Restaurant Restoration Act, all of the COVID funds that were coming out. We trained them, and literally it went from a sales organization to a support and a wellness, like a community wellness organization. And we reached out and we proactively did that because I was like, well, we got to pay our people and they need to have a job, they need to have something to do, but let me save you $50 on your payment processing is just that's not going to cut it in, the first quarter of COVID. That's just not going to do it. It's can I get you a loan? How's your business doing? What are you doing about employees? Okay, let us give you a free terminal. Wait, and not just that, we also did our mask campaign. We did UP Loves Doctors, and we sourced it was, I mean, it doesn't sound like much, but at the time it was the gymnastics, the, you know, import and customs gymnastics of getting 16,000 KN95 masks from China to the US and getting it out of China and into the US with all the regulations.
All that.
It was ridiculous, and it was expensive as well. It cost us
Yeah.
dang near $100,000 uh,
Wow. Because
just for
those
those
things were like
16,000 masks.
gold back
Yes,
then.
they
I
were. They
mean,
were.
they
And
were,
people were like, why? What are you trying to do? Are you trying to resell these masks? I'm like, I think there's something morally bankrupt about, taking taking critical supplies and, making a markup on it. I was like, no, I'm giving it to the doctors, I'm giving it to the dentists in the tri-state area, in the Midwest area, and everywhere we had an office. We distributed the masks. Yes, we had some, not PR, but we had some marketing. We took some videos of it.
Mhm.
There was always that Elmhurst Hospital Center, I think. You saw everybody nationwide on the news saw when it was a hotbed in Brooklyn. That I forgot what it was, that hospital center in Brooklyn where you just saw the ER, you saw, ambulances come in and out, and they were saying thousands of people are dying of COVID. We literally delivered to that hospital center through that ER
Wow.
entrance, and we
Those
Langone,
masks.
Jacoby Hospital, a bunch of hospitals. You just went on site and just delivering masks, and they were definitely appreciated. Like we were in front of NYU Langone, and all the nurses, all the doctors, they came out, and it was a mountain of masks just literally disappeared. It didn't take 30 seconds. They ran out. They were like, "Let me get two for my ward." Because it was so hard. The
Yeah.
masks, the N95 masks on eBay were $40 to $50
Yeah.
for a mask. We were giving out boxes of 20s out there to these people, and we distributed 15,000 plus of
Wow.
the 16,000 masks. We saved sub 1,000 because, everybody was like, "Oh, we need some for the workers because we're essential workers because we're maintaining this payments infrastructure for the
Hmm.
small business community."
Right.
And yeah, we did. It went from 33 employees quickly to 60, 80, and we recovered. Now we're literally, over 5 years, 6 years later, we're literally back around that number, about 130.
About 130 again.
Yep, 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 yep.
Built it back up. And I know you did not do this for the marketing or the notoriety, but were people noticing at the time? They say, "Oh, these guys, they do really care." I mean, did you see it or did
Yeah,
it
we
come
we we we
later?
we did see it. Many multiple doctors posted on social media. They gave our company a shout out. They talked about UP loves doctors, multiple clinics, multiple clients, delis, grocery stores, pharmacies. They all posted about it. I don't really think there's that much currency in social media, but they did post about it, and then we got covered and picked up by Forbes. Uh, we got, we got noticed by the Small Business Administration, the SBA,
Oh,
and we
wow.
were literally given our little government gold star. We were the
Well
only
done.
financial institution or financial services business out of, I think, 530 organizations to be recognized as a COVID community navigator. So
Ah.
that was unique in that we literally had a partnership and a sizable grant with the SBA
Hmm.
enforcing we had our contract, and uh, we literally opted in to go out and do merchant visits with the credibility as well as the recognition of the Small Business Administration. And we followed through. It wasn't a sales program, it was an outreach program. We separately, obviously, after gaining our database of small businesses, thousands of small businesses that we visited and told about SBA funds and small business loans, SBA loans, we did revisit the people because it's the same UP employees. It's like, "Oh, we got you these government funds. Now you've got funds. I know you don't need the money that bad, but since we're pretty good and we did it for free essentially, can we um can we talk about your payment processing?" And a lot of them
Yeah.
were like, "Sure, what are you talking about? You
You
just
saved
you
me.
saved my business.
Yeah.
I don't care what you charge me." I mean, we always did meet or beat pricing, but it was organic, and between the buzz of being on Forbes And that, I mean, the 2 years following COVID, we probably tripled in size. We
Wow.
tripled in business, portfolio size. So
Really?
it was a
I mean,
great,
that's interesting you bring that up because that's where I wanted to go next. So it
yeah,
snowballed after
yep,
that.
yep, yep.
You are the guys after COVID and people start picking up again.
At least, at least there was a very good amount of social proof
Hmm.
because we were out there for even nowadays, now it's close to 5 years, but at that 2, 3 years, we literally had a very solid partnership with the SBA. I got invited down to talk multiple times in DC. I got to meet the SBA administrator, Honorable Isabella Guzman, I believe her name was. Hopefully, I got that right. Yeah, she was the administrator of the SBA. Shook her hand. She thanked us for all the work we did. We got up on stage. I was like, "This is amazing. This is surreal. I'm literally serving the community and serving the United States of America at the same time, just doing what I love to do, which is helping immigrants and developing immigrant talent." So that was really I don't know if I could even describe how fulfilling that was. Uh, Truth be told, though, government programs are, in hindsight, programs are very inefficient. In order to actually execute on the programs and do exactly what we promised, we
Hmm.
probably we got funded something like 1 million, but we probably dropped 2.5 to
Whoa.
actually hit our goals. And these are non-sales goals. These are go door to door. These are talk about the points. These are train your entire company or certain points of your entire company, about 50 employees, on the money matters, on these SBA programs, and get them truly to become business consultants about these SBA programs, get them certified, all that, and then go out to thousands of business owners and then solicit, success stories from the work and the feedback that you gave. And that was all alongside our growing the business. So again, it was definitely a loss leader, but the point at that time, I mean, after we had recovered from COVID, the point was just to, execute upon what we promised because we signed a contract with the US government and we fulfilled it. I mean, these days, you think about contracts with the US government and you think about Leering centers, in the Midwest, Minnesota, I think, or Minneapolis, $9 billion in fraud.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Big.
that's kind of where the norm was. And even
Yeah.
within that environment, we had 533 other entities. We reached out to local entities left and right, like, "Oh, can you help us? Hey, we're going on the street." It's like a lot of the time just be like, "You guys actually working? Are you actually working?" And I was like, "Yeah, we signed a contract." And I was like, midway through, in the middle of losing 1.5 million, serving these merchants, I was like, could we literally have just signed the contract and done nothing and gotten away with it? And I'm not saying that we wanted to do that, but
But
there were
likely
parties
you
that
could have, right? I
did
mean,
that.
that seemed
And
to be
that,
the norm.
yeah, that's kind of the norm.
Yeah. I mean, you put monumental effort into this, and you were probably, I mean, you were probably in the best position to reach these communities. And if you didn't do it, the government is doing the best they can during COVID, but you
Yeah.
know, they don't have long arms into ethnic communities in the cities necessarily to explain this in their language and the terms
Hmm.
that they'll understand. This you were such an important piece to that because people probably wouldn't have had access to it otherwise if your team hadn't been out there. And
Yeah.
I think that's incredible. The fact that it snowballed and you became very successful afterwards and grew and grew and grew, I think, is one a logical outcome of something like that. And I think that's a lesson for everybody, right? Do the right thing and work hard at it. And look what happens. You're
Well, it's not look what happens immediately. It's look what happens
down the line a little bit.
if you can maintain doing the right thing and
Yeah.
taking your lumps for a decade plus, I don't know, 2 decades in some cases, then eventually,
Hmm.
right? If you're consistent about what you believe in and you execute upon what you believe in, there's gonna be a day where you will be rewarded. And I say this, again, with the reminder, with the caveat that the first decade of running this business, we were literally running it at zero to a deficit.
Yeah.
The first decade, I had weird jobs like work at a bar, nightclub promoter, um, full-time, literally WSOP, employed by Poker Stars, employed by Full Tilt Poker to be a poker grinder, tournament poker grinder. And I was
Wow,
cash
really?
positive at that to fund
To fund the
this
business.
business that's here today.
You gotta
Yes.
want, that's incredible, really. My partner would love that because he was a former professional poker player
Oh,
and
really? Okay.
yeah. He loves it. But that's crazy. Funding the business with side hustles to get it
Yeah. Yeah.
to keep it going. And I could see that. I mean, there might be some people that do it for a year or two, but then
Mhm.
they're like, this isn't gonna work. But you did it for 10 years. That's really impressive.
Well,
I
the
mean,
first 10 years. And a
yeah,
lot of that was stubbornness as well. So the stubbornness of the business model, the stubbornness of trusting in these ethnic partnerships, but also the stubbornness of just saying, I believe in what I'm doing
mhm.
and I'm going to see it through no matter what, because I do believe that there's a way where I'm going to turn things around. I guess there's pros and cons you know, with that.
Yeah. I mean, the hardest experiences teach you the most.
For
So
sure. For
now
sure.
you know.
Yeah.
Now you know. And I know we're getting up on the hour, so I want to.
Oh,
I
oops. Okay,
I know
great.
I didn't even realize. I just looked at the clock. I'm like, holy shit, we're there. The I want to close with two things. I think.
Okay.
Um, One is I'm curious. You say first 10 years were hard. COVID came out of COVID. Now you're here. What's clicking, and what did you figure out? If you had to put it in if you really had to boil it down,
Hmm.
what was it that hard experience taught you that made things click? And if it's a couple things, what is that? And then, you know, extending that, what's in the future?
Okay. If there was anything I learned from the first decade, it's that stubbornness comes at a very high cost. And in looking at the environment today,
Hmm.
I'm literally telling my middle management and my executive management that we need to be versatile. We need to be forward thinking. It's not just literally, the platitude of thinking outside the box. It's let's really, really innovate. I had an all hands, or there was like an all hands email where our head of deployment was saying, "Oh no, if we beta test this and this product goes out to the market, we're going to lose $60 to $80 per merchant. We should hold off on it and we should fix the economics for 3 months and then release it." And I'm like, buddy, look at what just happened with Block today. Dorsey or whoever is in charge of Block Square,
Right.
he just fired 40% of their staff because
Yes.
they were being replaced by AI. This
Hmm.
is how fast things move. This is a publicly traded company. No F's given, 40% bye-bye. Here, you are worried about, I appreciate your concern and your love of the company, but you're worried about losing $80 per merchant. I'm telling you, if we don't launch this product or we wait for 3 months, there might not be a product to launch because this is the speed of innovation in payments, in business, in commerce today. We can't wait 30, no, 90 days for you guys and the dev team to fix the economics of it. I don't care. I will gladly lose $80 per merchant for the next 90 days on the merchants that, in this beta test,
Hmm.
because the implementation time is faster than that. And, I posed it as a lesson to my middle management and my executive, all hands executive team that this is the perspective you need to espouse in 2026 because the big boys are innovating so fast. AI is changing the landscape so quickly. And then the tastes and preferences of the business community and the small business market, as well
Mhm.
as, the publicly traded, all the way down, mom and pop, all the way up to, the S&P. Their tastes and preferences are changing. The AI adoption is insane. I literally was, invited in 2020, 2 years ago. 2 years ago, I was sitting on a panel with Microsoft, Nationwide Auto, and another publicly traded company. Oh, U.S. Department of Policy, some Department of Policy in D.C. And I was the small business guy, and everybody else is, reading taglines about AI. I was like, this AI thing, I'm not sure about it. I'm a little skeptical. I think the government policy isn't that great, but who knows? I don't see it changing the world. And literally 24 months later,
Dude, look where
I
we're at.
have an R&D department making AI. I was the skeptic of AI. I literally said in front of to 300 people, they're all government officials and CEOs and business owners, no, I don't see it. And I watched Terminator. This isn't gonna, but I'm just not a fan. I don't see it. And now I have IP, an AI product
That's your own that
that,
you built, that you're
yeah,
pushing out.
yeah, exactly. So that is how fast you need to innovate. If I was
Mhm.
still stubborn and 2 years later, if I was still the same in 2024, February, that said AI is BS and I don't like it and I'm not going to change and I'm stuck in my ways, we'd probably be out of business within the next 2 years, right?
You
We'd
think
probably
so,
have
technically?
2 years. Yeah, that's how fast you need. So I made my stubborn mistakes, fortunately, early on in my 20s and 30s.
Hmm.
Now I can't afford to be stuck in my ways for even a year or even 3 months. I need to see that thread and pivot just like I did in during COVID.
Hmm.
Everybody was fleeing and everybody just like the CEOs during COVID, they fled. The other CEOs and payments who were, usually ethnic or Asian, they took a different direction as well. I stuck in and I'm not going to say took their market, but market share from their respective portfolios came to us. I hope that I don't want to dwell on forever. I guess you got me a little fired up on a Friday afternoon. It's been a pleasure talking about all this, but did I address both aspects,
You did.
up till
Absolutely.
now and looking forward?
Yeah, yeah, very well. And I feel like now we could have another hour talking about this. So
Probably, man.
some
Probably.
someday we will, because
Yeah,
I
for
mean
sure.
that we have fully embraced that AI, but again, it's you got to use it in the right way.
You
There's a
do.
lot of things I could go on forever, but so saying this was awesome. Thank you for the conversation. Thank you
Yeah.
for your time. Um, where can people find you if there's agents that want to sign up with you or learn more?
Just hit me up. My first name Saint. Our website is www.letsgoup.com. So people say Let's Group, but it's letsgoup.com. And you can find me at Saint at letsgoup.com. Pretty simple.
Awesome. Thank you again, Saint. Have a great
Thanks again for
weekend.
the
Enjoy your
opportunity.
Friday.
You have a great weekend as well, Mike. Take care.
Thanks.